22 years ago, General Hospital villain Rick Lansing did something so heinous to Elizabeth Weber that a romance between them should never be considered by the show again. In 2003, Rick Hurst, and Elizabeth, Rebecca Herbst, found out that she was pregnant. However, Faith Roscoe, Cynthia Preston, Rick's psychotic ex-girlfriend, pushed Elizabeth down a flight of stairs in a fit of jealousy, causing her to have a miscarriage. Rick incorrectly assumed that his half-brother and enemy Sonny Corinthos, Maurice Bernard, caused Elizabeth to lose their baby, and decided to take revenge on him. He kidnapped Carly Spencer, Laura Wright, who was carrying Sonny's baby, and held her hostage in a panic room in his and Elizabeth's house for months. His plan was to steal Carly's baby and pass it off as his and Elizabeth's. In the meantime, Rick was secretly putting birth control pills in Elizabeth's drinks so that she wouldn't become pregnant. When Elizabeth eventually discovered the button to the panic room and found Carly, she had an embolism, brought on by a combination of the birth control pills and the shock of finding out what Rick had done. Elizabeth divorced Rick, and that should have been the end of their romance. However, they eventually rekindled their relationship and remarried. However, his obsession with Sonny eventually caused Elizabeth to divorce him again. They got back together a few years later, but eventually broke up again after she found out that Rick had sabotaged her relationship with Jake Doe, who was actually Drew Kane, then played by Billy Miller. In 2024, Rick returned to Port Charles, and, somehow, after everything that he'd done to her, she's still talking to him. They even went on a date. However, General Hospital must never put Rick and Elizabeth back together romantically again. General Hospital's Elizabeth Weber has made terrible romantic choices in the past. Elizabeth married a serial killer. General Hospital's Rebecca Herbst, Elizabeth Weber, and Roger Howarth, Franco Baldwin, smiling at each other. Credit, ABC via Moviestills DB. Unfortunately, Rick isn't Elizabeth's only questionable romantic choice. Although Rick is a terrible General Hospital villain, he's nothing compared to Elizabeth's late husband, Franco Baldwin, Roger Howarth, who was a serial killer. Elizabeth has also been involved with and had children with bad boy Xander Smith, Chad Brannon, mob enforcer Jason Morgan, Steve Burton, and her first love, Lucky Spencer, Jonathan Jackson, who continuously abandons her. In addition, Elizabeth has had relationships with Nicholas Cassadine, Adam Huss, and Drew Kane, Cameron Matheson, both of whom are problematic men. The only good guy she was ever with was Hamilton Finn, Michael Easton, but they broke up when he kissed another woman when he was struggling with alcoholism. Elizabeth deserves more than Rick. Elizabeth needs a happy and healthy relationship. General Hospital's Rick Hart, Rick Lansing, and Rebecca Herbst, Elizabeth Weber, promotional photo. Credit, ABC via Moviestills DB. Elizabeth has grown into a strong, independent woman. After being introduced on General Hospital as a troubled teenager, she's become a wonderful mother and the head nurse at the hospital. She deserves so much more than Rick, a man who drugged her in order to prevent her from finding out that he was holding another woman captive in their house. It's hard to believe that she'd ever forgive him.